Hey everybody, hope you're all well. Welcome to another episode of EGIL.TRADE, brought to you by the Let's Talk Crypto podcast and proudly sponsored by CryptoFish. Today I have a very special episode. I have got Sawcruhteez, otherwise known as Tyler Coates, who I had on about 8-9 months ago, and he's the co-author of the book Hyperwave. He wrote it with Tyler Jenks and Leah Wald. Hyperwaves are a very specific type of bubble that they studied. They call them the rogue bubble. And he enlightens us a little bit about what he's been doing in the last 8 to 9 months and about the book. And we dive into a little bit of analysis and his views on Bitcoin, where he thinks it's going, what his sentiment is on gold, and some of the other markets too. It's a really great chat. We kept it pretty short and concise, only about 40 minutes, so that you could squeeze it into your day. I hope you enjoy it. Without any further ado, let's get going. Hey Tyler, welcome back to the show. Last time you were Sawcruhteez, now you're Tyler. I didn't actually know your real name before. I must presume that since you co-authored the new book Hyperwave, you decided to go out with your name. It's good to have you back on, and it's been 9 months since you've been on the show. How have you been?
Oh, I might have had a little connection issue there. Had to disconnect my VPN to try to improve it.
If you missed me, man, I just said welcome back to the show. Can you believe it? It's been 9 months since you've been on. How have you been?
Wow, I've been well, and that is I didn't realize it's been that long. At 9 months, that's crazy. Feels much shorter than that. Was just kind of reminiscing the other day about what a year ago was like, and it doesn't seem like that far ago. So yeah, lots happened, but it's sure been flying by.
Yeah, I mean, when we last spoke, you were still writing or co-authoring Hyperwave. We had just lost, unfortunately, Tyler Jenks, and you were looking forward to releasing the book, and now it's out. And I bought a copy a couple of days ago on Kindle. I had to do Kindle because they don't deliver to my country anymore since the lockdown. But yeah, I've just started. It's looking good so far. And yeah, 9 months ago, I mean, women have a baby in that time, so I'm sure that I'm sure that a lot's happened for you. I mean, you seem to have blown up on all the social media and YouTube channels and everything, and you've even come out with like new indicators and stuff. Would you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, been hard at work, and I'm really enjoying what I've been doing, getting a lot of really fun opportunities to travel around and talk about Bitcoin, talk about trading, and have been really enjoying that. And then, as you mentioned, did recently published the Hyperwave book, so that was something we were working on for a long time, probably a year before Tyler passed, something like that. We were grinding away on that, and it was really something special to have that published and to get to talk to people who've been reading it and whatnot. It's really been neat, and something that that's why I'm now going by Tyler instead of Sawcruhteez. So yeah, I appreciate you having me back, and would be happy to jump into anything that you want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was really looking forward to the Hyperwave book coming out, and I finally got a copy now. I must be honest, I just haven't had time to actually go and order the hard copy. But then, obviously, with this lockdown, I've had to go for the Kindle version. But I'm telling you now, as soon as Amazon starts delivering, or any bookshop for that matter starts delivering to this little island that I live on, I will be getting myself a hard copy, I can assure you. So what I wanted to jump in straight away is, like, we've been interviewing a few traders lately, and I've asked a few questions about how you how you sort of position yourselves, what your sort of strategy or your routine or your lifestyle is around trading. And one of the first questions I like to ask is, what does your typical day look like? Like, what is, and what I mean by that is, how does trading fit into your life or your routine?
That's a great question. I think it is a very important, maybe the most important thing about trading is the process that you have, the daily routine, so that many people will just kind of wait, like kind of react to when markets move and kind of do it at the exact worst time. And I really pride myself on sticking to a daily routine, which really helps me. Like, I'm not immune to the emotions that everybody feels. All that I can do is try to control them to the best of my ability. And a daily routine is absolutely one of the things that is most important to me. So first thing in the morning, I'm getting a cup of coffee and some breakfast in me, and then I'm diving into some charts. First thing I want to do is check any open positions to see if there's anything that needs to be adjusted there. And then after reviewing all my open positions, I have I just like refer to as my watchtower, where it's just a list of assets that I'm watching to keep an eye out to know, do I have any orders set? Do I, after checking my open positions, I check my open orders and then see, do I need to add any orders or not? And then traditionally, I've been a longer term like swing trader who will hold on to positions for months at a time, and that has been my MO ever since I started trading. Up until the last 6 months, I have put together a couple new indicators that are been really effective for some higher frequency day trading type of stuff. So now, over the last 6 months, I have been managing my position trades, and then here in the afternoon, diving in and spending about 4 hours day trading and scalping like the really smaller time frames, which is something I'm really starting to enjoy. And basically now got a bot that is able to execute my swing trading approaches. So it's going to free me up to really just have to kind of keep an eye on that, and then really focus a lot on the higher frequency trading.
Okay. So like, that's great. What percentage of your sort of waking hours do you think you dedicate towards your work, that being trading?
I would say I take Saturdays off, at least I try to, and then I'm working 12 hours a day throughout the week. So I, at a minimum, generally a lot more. I work from home, and
It's mainly trading, but I mean, that work, the work hours, is that mainly trading, or do you find that do you have other activities that I'm not aware of, perhaps that you do? I don't.
Yeah, it's pretty much all trading and charting, and then we'll have set an hour aside to check Twitter, check social media. It's important to me to be off of social media throughout the day, so that I'm not distracted when I am trading and get a message that pops up that can really take me out of the groove, take me out of the flow. So I will be basically trading all day, and then around dinner time, I'll take a break, get some food. When it's not in lockdown, that's when I go to the hot springs, and I do like a daily hot springs meditation session, which really helps me to just stay focused and balanced, because it's what's key for me is to maximize my productivity without burning out. So I really am very focused on being as productive as I can be, but I also do not want to burn myself out. And that's why I'll definitely take a day off on Saturday, try to get out to the golf course, that sort of thing. And then throughout the week, when I'm not able to get out of the house and go meditate in the hot springs, I've noticed it has really impacted my ability to stay focused and productive. So that is something that I am, if I'm working 12 hours a day, I'd say 10 of it is trading, and then 2 of it is responding to emails and messages and that sort of stuff.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, obviously you find that there is an important ingredient in trading, that sort of you must have your Zen or your inner peace, or you must have your time away from the charts and to reboot, refresh, and rejuvenate yourself.
Absolutely. Very, very important. I think a lot of people, you're kind of like a fish in water when you have your head in the charts all day, every day. And I've really noticed that often another big part of the day for me is just taking a walk and just getting out of my room, getting out of the charts, and really it kind of helps me to realize, holy cow, maybe I'm a little too convinced of where the market is going right now,
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
become a little too overexposed. So that is something that doing what I can to just get out of, like, when you just
Out
get
of
so
the
locked
bubble.
in. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
trying to get out of that a couple times a day, just to make sure I'm not like that gambling addict who's at the slot machine who can't get up
Watching the
easily.
ticker. Yeah. Exactly. So, okay, like let's just, I'm going to keep things moving a bit quicker because I know we've got time constraints, but swinging back to Bitcoin, what do you think the coronavirus pandemic and the shutdowns around the world, what impact do you think that'll have on Bitcoin over the medium? Well, let me not say medium term, between now and the end of the year, and I'm not just talking about price, just in general, what impact do you think that'll have on Bitcoin?
Well, I think there could be a number of impacts. I think the biggest impact will be the printing of money that the Fed has announced. Basically, they're printing $6 trillion, which is adjusted for inflation more than we spent to fight World War II. And what are we fighting here? What resources are being expended on? We're not buying tanks. We're not feeding soldiers. We're not paying soldiers. What are we doing? We're bailing out banks yet again. And I have been really, really, really interested to see how Bitcoin responds in that sort of environment, because we've never had Bitcoin in an S&P bear market before. And that's something I've been very afraid of. Bitcoin is the riskiest asset in the world, and when the S&P enters a bear market, people look to take risk off, and the first thing they look to basically get out of risky assets, sell stocks, get into cash. And Bitcoin, even gold, has historically sold off when the S&P does. So that was something that I have been very, very worried about how that could impact Bitcoin, but also very, very intrigued. If Bitcoin is able to hold up in that environment, that would make me exponentially more bullish on it long term. That's been my number one concern as a Bitcoin hodler with a 10 plus year time horizon. My number one concern has been what in the heck is going to happen when the S&P takes a dump. And what we're seeing right now has been impressing me more than anything I've ever seen out of Bitcoin. Right now, Bitcoin is outperforming every asset in the world, and it is doing so in an extremely risky environment. And it is doing so in response to huge money printing from the Feds. So for me, I am extremely excited about what we've been seeing recently. Still a little too early to really basically, I'm waiting for a higher high on the weekly. Until we get a higher high on the weekly, it's still a long-term bear market. Yeah. But what we have seen on this recovery has really been impressive. And also what we're seeing after the halving kind of sell-off is there's just been a lot of demand from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, initially when we did have the stock market crash, I mean, Bitcoin was kind of correlated to it, but ever since it has had a stunning recovery, I would say, and rightly so. I mean, until we do get a higher high on a weekly, I suppose we are technically, or for most, would be in a bear market. But I agree. So far, it's impressive, and maybe it is still a little bit too early to tell, because the effects of all the money printing perhaps hasn't worked its way through the system yet, and it'll be interesting to see how Bitcoin holds up then. But if you're impressed now, so far from what you've seen, what would have been the sort of the pivot point for you being not impressed at what Bitcoin was doing now? So you're impressed Bitcoin's made it up to nearly 10K. If Bitcoin had not made it up, what would be that threshold? If it only got up to 6K, 5K from that 3.6 bounce or 3.4 bounce or whatever it was? What was your, like, okay, it's past 8K, so now it's looking good?
A really good question, and you're about spot on there. It was really 7,500 was the key level that I was looking at for a number of reasons, and it's probably a good time to go ahead and share it.
Yeah, go for it. Please do.
Looks like it says host disabled attendee screen sharing. So
oh dear. Hold on. Try again.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is the long-term market structure for Bitcoin. It has been in this Bitcoin log growth curve channel basically since 2002, and this is an indicator that is available for free. I didn't put this one together, but I absolutely love it. If you just go search for Bitcoin, let's see here,
Bitcoin log.
Bitcoin logarithmic growth curves by
Oh, that's great.
Delic. And it has been a really, really powerful tool to basically highlight tops and bottoms. And then also the median has been an extremely important level time and time again. So this is something that I have been paying very, very close attention to. I was buying, let's see here. I was really interested in buying, but I was waiting for further confirmation from my indicators. But this is where I was really, really interested in buying. And when this gave up, when this support fell, that's when that big move really happened.
Yes.
I really do think that that was a response to this long-term market structure support breaking down and people basically being over-leveraged and that sort of thing. So on this bounce, I was completely just expecting it to throw back to retest prior resistance for support, like so. So that's where I was basically just viewing this. We got another lower low, and this is a critical one because it broke down a 10-year bull trend line, bull channel, and now a bounce should just throw back to retest it for support. Instead of that, we get this sort of V-shaped bottom that gets back inside of this channel and is now supporting this. So this continues to be my critical level. As long as we are above this area, I am really expecting some big things. But if we do just have another lower high here and come back down below 8,000, now everything changes again. So this is just an absolutely critical time. And I think it's really presenting some really good risk reward based on how well defined the stop is going to be for me and how much room there is to the upside.
Very, very interesting. Would you agree that perhaps that whole V bottom, I mean, I know that it was probably washing out over leveraged traders as those quick moves often do. But I mean, the way it's recovered that logarithmic resistance support line, it's almost like a bit of a bear trap going underneath. I know it was a bit incremental staircasing the way back up, but the way it is now, living above support could be seen as like that whole move below was really to wash everybody out, get everybody super bearish. Even if you look at the fear and greed index, everybody's still bearish, and we've more than doubled, almost tripled off the lows, and we're still sitting in the negative territory on like fear and greed index. It's almost like climbing the wall of worry, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything is there for me. Everything is lining up, and I'm planning on building a very significant position because of that. And yeah, so it's absolutely just really looking like a huge shakeout and trap, which is what really is a lot of times needed before the biggest moves up. When you get these huge shakeouts that recover this quickly, it puts the market in a position where everybody that sold is left behind and they're on the sidelines, and whoever bought that big sell-off, well, they have got some big positions that usually to get that kind of liquidity in a market like Bitcoin is very, very difficult to do. But in that freak sort of, basically, I'm absolutely considering that capitulation, huge volume, huge amount of liquidations. Whoever was ready to buy all that up, that's somebody who is thinking long-term. That's somebody who isn't going to be taking profit before all-time highs, as far as I'm concerned. This is just my read on the market.
It's a very good
that shakeout puts the market in a perfect position, because if you didn't sell on that move down, then what is going to cause you to sell? So that has really changed my opinion to the fact I didn't think that Bitcoin would be able to decouple from the S&P in an S&P bear market.
Mm-hmm.
And now I do, because I think that the weak hands were shaken out, the over-leveraged traders were liquidated, and that leaves us in a position where there's a huge imbalance in supply-demand before the halving. And now that the halving has occurred, I'm really seeing a significant imbalance in the supply and demand.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that was a very significant move. And I tend to agree with you. If anybody who had the liquidity to buy that all up, to get rid of that position they've got, they would need it to go substantially higher to have enough liquidity to drill it back down, or to have hands to sell it into. So yeah, that's a very good point. A good way of presenting it, I must say. Okay, awesome. So tell me something. Is Hyperwave still active on the Bitcoin structure? Do you feel that it's invalidated on this particular one, or do you think that there is still room? Because I haven't read the book yet. I just got it. So educate me. Is it still possible that we're going down to phase one?
Absolutely. Hyperwave still is intact. Two things, one of two things can happen. And until that happens, one of the two things, that Hyperwave is still intact. And we either need to return to phase one at 1,000 or create a new all-time high. And until that has happened, it's still phase 7 of the Hyperwave. And we have seen some very, very lengthy and maniacal phase 7s that take much, much longer than anyone could imagine. And so, yeah, it's always going to be in a Hyperwave as long as it's between 1,000 and 20,000. And if it stays between that price for the rest of the time, then it's still in a Hyperwave. And in terms of, do I think that the price is going to 1,000? I absolutely did when we broke down that log curve trend line, and I was talking about it as we were kind of testing it. I was saying I really believe this is going to hold, but if it doesn't, then I'm really going to believe that we're going to 1,000. And as we have regained that log curve trend line and gone through the halving, now I am viewing it as a very low likelihood. But again, if we go back below 75, then it's going to be the highest likelihood. So this is just the absolute critical crossroads for the next 2 years, as far as I'm concerned. And it's very, very important to be paying close attention and diligently managing risk.
So when you say 2 years, I mean, that's a long time, especially for some of the people who've only been involved in Bitcoin for probably two years or less. So almost like an eternity. 2 years, what are you saying is going to happen in 2 years? Well, what is that timeline? Are you saying that perhaps we will only either hit 1,000 or break all-time highs being 20K, let's round it off, in 2 years? Is that sort of what you're envisaging, or?
Maybe I wasn't clear with what I was saying. I'm not sure where the 2 years came up. Basically, okay. As long I have no prediction in terms of timing. Hyperwave doesn't make any predictions for timing. Like it could still be in a Hyperwave 20 years from now, or it could end tomorrow, so yes. That's something that I have no predictions there, but I do firmly believe that the biggest bull markets in Bitcoin happen the 2 years after the halving. And generally that is when the parabolas take place. And that's where, before I kind of mentioned a lot of things lining up for me, it's technically, and then also what we've been seeing, like what you mentioned with the fear and the greed index, is like, it doesn't seem like anybody is really buying this. And that has been shown in the futures curve. We have been in backwardation. Basically, right after the halving, the market went into backwardation, which is a very strong sign of that the market is oversold, and that it's basically strong hands buying what weak hands are selling. And that was confirmed by really longs getting paid. So you have longs getting paid and backwardation. That tells me that like what you're seeing from the fear and the greed index, that the most people are viewing this as a sell, and it's getting bought up.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when we know we're near the lows. We've nearly got to triple of the lows, and yet people are still fearful and in disbelief. It's almost like that market cycle that you always see, the Wall Street cheat sheet, and you know that next market phase begins, and everybody says, "Oh, it's another false rally," but it ultimately leads to the next bull cycle. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards right now. It's not a very tradable thing unless you're some of these big market movers that are buying for the cycle that is like going to be the next 3 to 4 years. But because I do a bit of I do day trading and swing trading, and that I can't trade based on that, but I can definitely trade with the trend, which will make my life a whole lot easier, as you know.
That's absolutely true. I am a big proponent of trading with the trend, and always that's basically why I was able to avoid buying that test of the log curve trend line when it broke down, because the trend was fully bearish. So I was waiting for that to confirm my position. So yeah, that's something that I will be paying very close attention to, and I think right here it's really that crossroads.
Okay, so just moving on to something else very quickly. Last time you were on the show, hard to believe, gold was at $1,340. It's now sitting at about $1,740. If you just had to look at the chart, or if you've got a chart of it thrown up, I don't know if you've been charting it or if you trade or anything to do with gold, but I know you like gold. Are you still bullish on gold?
Absolutely. Was buying below 1,300, around 1,250 was where I built my original position, and that was important to me to not have just like a derivative or a paper ETF. So definitely a big proponent of having a significant portion of my investments in physical gold over the years to come. I have been absolutely expecting new all-time highs out of it, and expecting another bubble similar to what I'm expecting out of Bitcoin. And I actually did just buy yesterday on just for a swing trade, not necessarily an investment. And that is because we've been starting to see some really nice patterns out of gold, and I've been paying very close attention to them. Very tradable events when you get a bull trend and then a pattern breakout. That's something that I pay very close attention to. Was recently taking a speculative position on gold due to that symmetrical triangle, bull pennant, whatever you want to call it. And then I do have a target here from, let's see here, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I'm going to have to, the target isn't confirmed yet, but it's something that I'm going to be paying very close attention to, is what I'm seeing as a very bullish inverted head and shoulders. And let me see, they changed this recently. I'm trying to find the text box. There we go. Okay, so we've got right here, shoulder. And then we've got our head. And this one is a little different than normal because the neckline has a bullish slant to it. It's not a horizontal resistance, it's higher highs, which is extra bullish for me, absolutely. So if we do close above, let's see, what is that? We'll call it 1760. That would give us a measured move. Let's see here, 1 second.
No problem. Looks good.
Okay, I would measure it right in there or so. So it'd be about $274. That'd give us a target of $2,000.
$2,000.
Yep. If we can close a weekly above, let's call it above this guy, above 1756 is what I'll be looking at. Another quick pattern that I want to just take a look at is a potential parabola forming.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't seen that on gold. Okay. Okay. All right.
So
Wow.
this is really intriguing to me because on the big sell-off that all the markets sold off, gold was by far the strongest asset that I can find that isn't
Cool.
something like benefited from this, because it didn't even create a lower low. On the weekly chart, you didn't even get a lower low, and you kept this parabola intact. And then you immediately went off to create a new higher high. So this is really looking strong to me, and I am, like I said, just seeing some signs of, like right here. I just want to show the kind of start to the last run. It had this real nice cupping sort of bottom that, so
Yeah.
you did get the parabola, but what I want us to pay attention to is this the kind of start of it was this real rounding kind of cupping action
Sort of like
that
an accumulation.
exactly that really looks very, very similar to what we are seeing right there.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I'm
Can definitely see
definitely
it.
looking at new all-time highs and potentially a really big move after that. I am looking to trim, take some profit at 1785 to 1800. I do expect that to be a bit of resistance, and we'll be looking to take some profit and hopefully get to buy back on somewhere around that parabola.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Just simply playing support and resistance there. Very, very nice. Okay. Very nice. I enjoyed that. Okay. So tell me something. You obviously saw, as everybody else in the world did, something really unique happen for the first time in history. Well, at least the first time that I know that it's happened in history, when the oil prices went into negative pricing. What were you surprised by that? Were you watching it live? What do you have to say about that?
Oh yeah, I was not only surprised by that, I was taking a loss on that move. I
Oh dear.
was very bullish when it got around $20. It formed a really like just a textbook Wyckoff accumulation pattern, which is one of my favorite patterns, and everything was there. So I definitely took
Okay.
a long position and was very surprised, but somebody that wasn't was a former partner of mine, Leah Walt. She wrote, her and her new business partner, Stephen McClurg, posted an article maybe 2 weeks before it happened, calling for not only negative prices, I think they called for negative $30. Like, it was insane how they called this. She shared the article
Wow.
to me, and I just basically laughed her out of the chat room. It was like, what are you talking about? Negative prices for oil, something that the economy clearly needs to, sustain. Sign me up for all the negative, pay me all the money you want in the
I'll
world
take a
to take
million
oil.
barrels, please.
So yeah, I guess some people were able to actually see that coming ahead of time, but it certainly wasn't me. And that was a spot where I did, have a protective stop in, and I did take a loss. But
Okay.
yeah, so it was a spot where I couldn't believe the call that Lee and her partner made.
That is incredible. I didn't know about that. That's quite yeah, that's quite something for somebody to predict something that's never happened. I mean, it's literally, I don't think it's ever happened before. And to the extent of being, even if it wasn't accurate, but it was accurate, that is pretty incredible. It's quite eerie, actually. But I do remember like something similar happening, as in, while it was happening, I didn't trade it like you did, but I was on with somebody and they were saying, it's a buy, it's a definite buy. And I was just like, I don't know, man. It's like it's moving pretty quickly here. I don't know. I think it could get to 10 pretty quickly, and maybe even single digits. No ways, no ways. And then within an hour or two, this thing was negative, and it's just like, wow, okay. We just both sat back and just watched, and just in total awe of it. On TradingView, I was just like, wow, this is literally the most amazing thing I've seen. Yeah. Anyway.
I really enjoyed watching that live myself, and it
Yeah.
was a really great experience. Anybody that did get to watch that live now has that experience. It can
Exactly.
remember how fast something can literally go to zero. I mean, it was so fast that I anybody that wants to say Bitcoin can never go to zero, they have to seriously reconsider that problem.
That's exactly what we were saying at the time. We're like, well, that's kind of like what will happen if Bitcoin, the network, failed. It would do that. If it did. I don't say it will. But it's kind of, that's what you would expect to see. Anyway, I digress. I believe that you recently did and completed a course in options. I think it was the Tone Vase course in options. How did you find options? I'm not asking for a review of his course. I'm just saying, how do you find options? And tell me a little bit about your thoughts around that. And are you using it, or do you plan to use or trade options in the future?
Absolutely. That is one of the things that I'm most excited about moving forward. For years, I have been trying to teach myself options due to a belief that I have that they're the best instrument to trade. And I was unable to really educate myself about options. It was really, I'm completely self-taught as a trader, and that was the one thing that I just had to kind of give up on. I couldn't figure it out myself. So getting the opportunity to take Tone's course was just tremendous experience, and something that will absolutely, I'll take those lessons with me for the rest of my life, and definitely plan on making that a main part of my trading. I've kind of got a game plan over the next few months, and after I get a couple projects knocked out, I'm going to be really rolling up my sleeves to focus on trading options. There are a couple strategies that just everybody should know how to do it. If you hold Bitcoin and you hold Bitcoin long term, then you need to learn how to write covered calls. I am completely convinced that people that hold Bitcoin long term can increase their HODL at a basically no risk.
It's basically a way of earning a return on investment via Bitcoin. It's basically a way of earning interest on your Bitcoin.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. And the only way that you lose is basically on opportunity. If the price goes up after you write a covered call, then you miss out on that amount that the price went up. But if it just goes sideways or down, then you get to add to your exposure. So you're really in a spot where if you're committed to holding Bitcoin through these bear markets, then you can just make a lot of money by writing covered calls. And the comparing that to like a short sell, it's just not even close. It's not even the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. The risk is just not there. So I mean, if it would have been as simple as in 2018 when you got the lower high on the weekly, and then even if you waited to confirmation a lower low and then got the secondary high, you could have just written a covered call and forgotten about it until the mid 2019 or something, and you would have been well off.
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
All right, man.
We keep your Bitcoin, and you get to protect yourself. You get to hedge you get to lock in your gains. So yeah, I strongly encourage anybody out there who is holding Bitcoin long term to Google covered call, and to make sure that you don't do it unless you fully understand the Greeks, because that's where I really had trouble, is understanding delta and theta and gamma, and how those actually affect your profit and loss. So if you can give to yourself a good understanding of those, and there's no better way to do it than Tone's course. And the price tag is $3,000, and that is something that you should make that back in a month or two if you have any sort of significant position in Bitcoin.
Sure. No, awesome. I've always loved options. I do use it. I hedge myself with options. I take profit using options, and yeah, it's great. Ever since Deribit came on stream for Bitcoin, I've been using it. But okay, coming to the end here, a bit of a tricky question, maybe easy for some or more difficult for others. Depends on how well you know yourself. So, if there is one weakness you have identified about your own trading, or your trading style, or the way you conduct yourself in terms of trading, that you could push a button to improve your profitability and your consistency, what would that be?
Well, If I had an answer to that, I would be pushing that button right now. That's for sure. Uh, there are a lot of things that I can improve upon, and I'm consistently learning and trying to review trades. Another part of my process is like a weekly checkup on how I performed. I don't focus on how much I made nearly as much as I focus on how I performed. So I'm consistently learning and finding out new areas to improve. Yesterday was a spot where I learned a lesson because I entered into a position where I thought that I could enter a little bit bigger position than I really should have, and that was as a result of the volatility. And now I am getting a much better understanding of how to adjust my position sizes when markets get extra volatile. So it was a big lesson for me. And something else that I have that I just kind of came up yesterday was a idea that helped me to understand the difference between swing trading and day trading. And in day trading, what somebody mentioned was that it can be really easy to hold on to losing positions, while it's also hard to hold on to winning positions. So that was kind of a light bulb to me that, yeah, that's right. When I've been day trading, I've been holding on to some losing positions for too long. And now I've really started to consider the idea of cutting positions really quickly if they don't move in my favor very soon. And that's something that's very different from swing trading. And swing trading, you kind of have to have the strong hand to hold through some big moves against that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm consistently focused on learning and trying to improve. And I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I don't continue to do that. But yeah, anytime that there's a lesson to learn, I try to implement that as soon as I can.
Awesome. Good. Great. Enjoyed the answer. Thanks for that. And that's the end of the show, man. I recommend that everybody goes out and gets Hyperwave, or at least reads up about it, or checks out your channel. I think it's called Sawcruhteez Streams. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, goes and checks you out, or follow you on Twitter, also Sawcruhteez. It's been a blast having you on again. 9 months was too long. Hope to have you on a lot sooner, and we can dive into more detail in terms of charts and strategies. And yeah, great to have you on again, man. Stay well, stay safe.
Excellent. Absolutely. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to chat with you and see you posting on Twitter and whatnot. So definitely appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you having me on. And yeah, let's do it sooner rather than later next time.
Thanks, man.